Hey there, fellow gardeners! Ever wondered how a single sweet potato can turn into hundreds of pounds of food? What if I told you it's possible with just a little bit of know-how? Imagine taking a $1 sweet potato and turning it into 1,000 pounds of food. Crazy, right? Well, in today's video, I'm going to show you exactly how it's done by growing sweet potato slips. Stick around because by the end of this video, not only will you know how to grow an endless supply of sweet potatoes, but you'll also learn how to store them so they last for months. So grab a pen and paper because this master guide is packed with tips and tricks you don't want to miss. If you're excited, drop a like and hit subscribe if you haven't already. All right, let's jump right in. All right, let's dive into why sweet potatoes are such an amazing crop to grow in your garden. First off, they're incredibly easy to take care of, which is a huge bonus for any gardener, whether you're just starting out or you've been at it for years. Sweet potatoes thrive in hot, humid weather, which makes them a dream for warmer climates or those long summer months. While other crops like tomatoes might need a little extra attention when the temperature rises, sweet potatoes just keep going. No fuss, no stress. They're pretty much the definition of a low-maintenance powerhouse. But here's the real kicker. Sweet potatoes are a long-term investment in your garden. Once you've got them growing, they'll continue to thrive. And the best part? You can store them for months. This means you'll have fresh, homegrown sweet potatoes ready to go for your winter meals, which is perfect for meal prepping, roasting, or even baking. Plus, if you're into eating healthy, these guys are packed with nutrients. We're talking about a great source of vitamin A, which supports your immune system, and plenty of fiber to keep everything running smoothly. So not only are they easy to grow, but they're a superfood for your body. And let's not forget, sweet potatoes are more than just versatile in the kitchen. They're also one of the few crops that can survive the heat, pests, and even heavy rain. That's something most vegetables can't handle. So if you want a plant that's going to reward you for minimal effort with big results, sweet potatoes are a must-have in your garden. All right, before we get into the nitty-gritty of how to grow your sweet potatoes, let's take a moment to understand exactly what they are. First things first, sweet potatoes are not actually potatoes, so don't let the name fool you. Unlike regular potatoes, which are part of the nightshade family, sweet potatoes are actually the tuberous roots of a morning glory vine. That's right, the same vines that produce those beautiful, colorful flowers in your garden. They may not seem like your typical root vegetable, but trust me, sweet potatoes have a whole lot to offer. Now here's the cool part. From each sweet potato, you can grow multiple plants. How? By growing what we call sweet potato slips. These are small, sprouting vines that grow off the mature sweet potato. You can plant these slips in the ground and they'll take off, rooting into the soil and producing more sweet potatoes. So that one single sweet potato can give you multiple harvests, making it a seriously productive crop for your garden. It's like getting several plants from just one. That's the kind of plant we all want: productive, easy to manage, and highly rewarding. And here's the kicker. Not only do sweet potatoes give you multiple harvests, but they're also low maintenance. Once you get them started, you don't have to do much. Sweet potatoes are one of those rare crops that practically grow themselves, making them perfect for beginners or anyone who doesn't want to spend all their time fussing over plants. Timing is everything when it comes to growing sweet potatoes. Trust me on this. If you don't get the timing right, your sweet potatoes won't thrive. These plants love warmth, and they cannot tolerate the cold. Unlike other crops that can handle a little chill, sweet potatoes need consistent warmth, both during the day and at night. The soil needs to be warm, and the nighttime temperatures should stay above 50 degrees Fahrenheit. If you're planting too early and those cold temperatures hit, your sweet potatoes just won't grow the way they should. So here's the secret to getting it right. You need to plant sweet potatoes only after the threat of frost has completely passed. This is crucial. To figure out when to start your slips, here's a simple formula. Start with your last frost date. Once you have that date, add about a month to it. That's when you can safely plant your slips outside. But here's the kicker. Before you actually plant those slips, you want to give yourself enough time to start the slips indoors. You'll need to count back 60 to 90 days from your target planting date. That's when you should be starting to sprout your sweet potatoes. So let's break it down into a real-world example. Let's say your last frost date is April 15th. You'll want to plant your slips around mid-May. So now just count back about 90 days from that date, which lands you at mid-February. That's when you'll want to get your sweet potatoes started indoors. For warmer zones, you might plant in late April, which means starting in January. And if you're in a cooler zone, you might not plant until June, so you'll start in March. This timing method helps ensure your sweet potatoes get plenty of time to grow in warm conditions, which is key for a great harvest. Now let's talk about selecting the right sweet potatoes for your slips. You've actually got a few great options here, and the one you choose can make a big difference in your harvest. The most obvious choice is to use regular sweet potatoes from your local grocery store. These are easy to find, and they'll absolutely work for growing slips. You'll typically find the classic orange varieties like the Jewel or Beauregard, which are great for starting out. They're reliable, they sprout well, and they're widely available. But here's where I want to push you a little further. Why not try something a little more unique? If you have access to a local Asian market, you'll find a treasure trove of sweet potato varieties that you won't see on the grocery store shelves. Take the Murasaki sweet potato, for example. It's got a stunning purple skin and white flesh, and the flavor is incredible, much sweeter and more complex than the typical orange variety. Or, my personal favorite, the Okinawan sweet potato, also known as the Hawaiian purple sweet potato. This variety has a light tan skin, but when you cut into it, the flesh is a gorgeous deep purple. The flavor is unbelievably sweet and delicious. It's one of the best sweet potatoes you can taste, hands down. These varieties may be a bit pricier than your regular grocery store sweet potatoes, but hear me out. You only need 1 or 2 to start your slips, and they'll give you tons of plants. Plus, when you grow these unique types, you're not just growing for quantity, you're growing for quality. And here's a little pro tip. Bigger potatoes are always better for growing slips. The larger the potato, the more energy it has stored, and that means more slips for you. Bigger potatoes also tend to sprout more vigorously and give you a longer production window. So don't shy away from picking out the biggest, healthiest potatoes you can find. Whether you're picking up a grocery store variety or something special from a market, remember, a big potato means more slips and a higher yield. All right, now we're getting into the fun part, creating your slip station. This is where the magic happens, where that one sweet potato will start to transform into dozens or even hundreds of new plants. Now, instead of relying on the old toothpick and glass method, I'm going to show you a more efficient and reliable way to sprout your sweet potatoes. Trust me, this method works wonders. First, grab yourself a plastic container. It doesn't have to be anything fancy, just something big enough to hold a few sweet potatoes flat with some space between them. A simple storage bin from your local big box store will do the trick, and it'll cost you next to nothing, probably around $8 or $10. Now, we need to set up a good environment for the potatoes to sprout, so you'll also need some potting mix. The key here is moisture control. Here's how we do it. 1. Moisten your potting mix. Take your potting mix and moisten it just until it's damp, not soaking wet. You want it to hold together when you squeeze it, like a snowball. No water should be dripping out when you squeeze it, just enough moisture to keep everything nice and damp. This is critical. Too much water and your potatoes will rot. Too little and they won't sprout properly. Now, number 2, place your sweet potatoes in the mix. Once your mix is just right, it's time to lay your sweet potatoes in the container. Place them horizontally, burying them about halfway in the damp mix. Make sure to space them out a bit so each potato has enough room to develop slips. You want about half of the sweet potato exposed above the soil and half buried below where the roots will form. Now, number 3, cover and seal. After placing your sweet potatoes in the container, it's time to cover it up. But don't seal it tight. Leave the lid slightly cracked open. This is key for maintaining humidity while still allowing air circulation. Sweet potatoes love a warm, humid environment, but they also need a little bit of airflow to prevent mold from developing. By keeping a lid slightly cracked, you create a mini greenhouse effect inside the container where warmth and moisture can build up but still have enough fresh air circulating to keep everything healthy. You'll want to check in daily. Just open the lid for a few minutes to let fresh air in, then close it back to maintain that humid environment. Now here's a bonus tip. Place your container in a warm, sunny spot. Think a south-facing window or even a sunroom. Sweet potatoes need light to sprout, and that warmth from the sunlight will really kickstart the process. The more light and warmth, the faster those slips will start popping up. And if you want to speed things up even more, you can throw a seedling heat mat underneath the container to provide some extra warmth, especially in cooler spaces. All right, here's where the real test of patience comes in, waiting for your sweet potatoes to sprout. Now, I know this can feel like the hardest part, but trust me, it's totally worth it. Sweet potatoes aren't in a rush, and they need a few weeks to start showing signs of life. So don't worry if you don't see anything happening right away. This process takes time, and that's just part of the magic. What you'll notice first is little bumps starting to form on the surface of the sweet potatoes. These are the beginnings of your slips, the tiny sprouts that will eventually turn into full-grown vines. You might not see much in the first couple of weeks, but that's okay. What's really happening is that the sweet potatoes are focusing their energy on developing roots and getting ready to push those slips up to the surface. During this waiting period, all you need to do is keep an eye on your container. Make sure the potting mix stays moist, not too dry, not too soggy, and ensure the sweet potatoes are getting plenty of light and warmth. Patience is key, and soon enough, you'll start to see those little slips popping up. It's an exciting moment, and I promise the wait is totally worth it. So tell me, are you excited yet? I know I am. I can almost see those slips growing already. Let me know in the comments if you've started growing sweet potatoes in your garden, or if you're planning to try it this season. I love hearing about everyone's gardening journey, so drop a comment below and share your experience. Are you using store-bought sweet potatoes, or have you saved your own from last year's harvest? Let's chat about it. Here it is, the moment of truth. After all that waiting, it's finally time to harvest your slips. Once your sweet potato slips have grown to about 6 to 8 inches tall, with a few leaves and some visible root nodes along the stem, it's time to get them out of the container and into the ground. Now, when it comes to harvesting your slips, I personally prefer to cut them at the base, right where the slip meets the sweet potato. Why? Because cutting them cleanly causes less damage to both the slip and the mother sweet potato, which means you can keep the potato healthy and continue to harvest more slips over time. So, grab a clean, sharp pair of scissors or a knife and carefully cut each slip at the base. And here's a little secret to supercharging your harvest. You don't just have to harvest one slip per sweet potato. You can actually divide a single slip into multiple plants by cutting between the nodes along the stem. Each node where you see roots or root bumps can be turned into its own individual plant. So if you've got a slip that's 8 inches tall with 4 nodes showing roots, you could potentially turn that one slip into 4 new plants. That's right, 4! This technique lets you get even more out of your sweet potatoes and really boost your yield. It's one of my favorite parts of the process because you see just how much potential each sweet potato has. One potato can lead to dozens of new plants. Remember, if you're ever in doubt, just cut between the nodes. Every node with roots can become a new plant. And if you're looking to really maximize your harvest, this is the trick to do it. Now that you've harvested your sweet potato slips, it's time to plant them in the garden, and I've got some key tips to make sure they get the best start. First off, you'll want to plant your slips in well-draining soil. Sweet potatoes do best in soil that doesn't hold too much water because they can rot in soggy conditions. So if you've got soil that tends to retain water, you might want to consider adding some organic matter or even using raised beds to improve drainage. When it comes to spacing, aim to plant your slips about 12 to 18 inches apart. This gives each plant enough room to spread out and establish a good root system. Sweet potatoes love room to grow, so don't crowd them together. If you're planting in rows, make sure the rows are about 3 to 4 feet apart to give your vines space to sprawl without interfering with other plants. Now here's where timing really matters. You want to plant your slips at the right time of day. The best time to plant is in the evening or on a cloudy day. Why? Because it helps reduce stress on your slips. If you plant them when the sun is blazing, those tender little slips can get scorched before they have a chance to settle in and root. Planting them in the evening gives them all night to start rooting before facing their first full day of sunlight. Sweet potatoes are root crops, so they need to be planted deep enough to bury the stem nodes where the roots will form. When you plant, make sure to bury the stem at least up to the first set of leaves. These nodes are where the magic happens. This is where new roots will grow, helping your plants establish a strong foundation. Now that your sweet potato slips are in the ground, the fun really begins. Sweet potatoes are an incredibly low-maintenance crop, but that doesn't mean you can completely forget about them. They still need a little care to thrive and give you that big, beautiful harvest. The first thing to keep in mind is watering. Sweet potatoes love consistent moisture, especially when they're first getting established. You want to make sure the soil stays moist but not soggy. Deep watering is key. Water thoroughly so the moisture reaches the roots, but avoid watering so much that the soil becomes waterlogged. Sweet potatoes can be sensitive to overwatering, so always check the soil before you add more water. Next, keep an eye on the vines. As they start to grow, they'll naturally begin to sprawl out across the garden, and that's a good thing. But be careful, they can grow really fast, and if you let them go unchecked, they can take over the garden. While it's great to let them stretch out, you want to avoid letting them root along their length too much, as that can divert energy away from the main root system. Gently reposition the vines every couple of weeks to keep that energy focused on growing bigger sweet potatoes. Here's a care tip. Sweet potatoes are tropical plants, so they absolutely love warmth. If temperatures dip unexpectedly, or you're facing a late-season cold snap, you may need to cover your plants temporarily with row covers or something similar to protect them from the chill. This will keep the warmth trapped and give your plants the best chance to keep growing strong. While sweet potatoes are generally a pretty trouble-free crop, occasionally you might run into some common issues. Don't panic, these are usually pretty easy to solve once you know what to look for. Let's go over a few things you might notice and how to address them. First up, if your slips are wilting or growing slowly, the most likely culprit is inconsistent watering. Sweet potatoes need regular moisture, but they don't like sitting in soggy soil. If the soil is too wet, the roots can start to rot, and if it's too dry, the plants can't get the water they need to thrive. The trick is finding that sweet spot, moist but not soaking. Keep the soil consistently moist, especially in the early stages when the slips are getting established. Another common issue you might notice is yellowing leaves. If you see this happening, it could be a sign of a nutrient deficiency, most likely nitrogen. Nitrogen is key for producing those green, healthy leaves, so a light application of a balanced fertilizer can help perk them up. It could also be a magnesium deficiency, which shows up as yellowing between the leaf veins. A quick fix is usually a dose of magnesium sulfate or an all-purpose. Okay, here is a little problem-solving tip. For yellowing leaves, check for nutrient deficiencies and consider adding a balanced fertilizer or magnesium supplement to give your plants what they need to stay green and healthy. If you're seeing slow growth, take a moment to check the temperature of your soil. Sweet potatoes love heat, and if the soil is still a little cold, they won't grow as quickly. Make sure your soil temperature is consistently above 65 degrees Fahrenheit for optimal growth. If it's too cold, consider using black plastic mulch to warm up the soil faster. All right, we've made it to the most exciting part, harvesting your sweet potatoes. After all your hard work, it's time to dig up those beautiful tubers. You'll want to wait about 4 to 5 months after planting, depending on your climate, to ensure they've had enough time to mature. When the vines start to die back and the leaves begin to turn yellow, that's your sign that it's almost time to harvest. Now, when it's time to harvest, carefully dig around your plants to avoid damaging the sweet potatoes. Use a shovel or garden fork to gently lift them from the soil. You don't want to just yank them up. You could bruise or break the tubers, and trust me, you don't want that after all that time and effort. Once they're out of the ground, shake off the excess dirt, but don't wash them yet. Washing sweet potatoes right after harvesting can remove their protective skin, which can shorten their shelf life. Just brush off the dirt gently with your hands or a soft brush. Here's the secret to getting that perfect sweet potato flavor: curing. After you've harvested your sweet potatoes, they need to sit in a warm, humid environment for about 2 weeks. Curing allows the starches in the sweet potatoes to convert to sugars, which gives them that amazing sweetness we all love. The ideal conditions for curing are around 80 to 85 degrees Fahrenheit with 85 to 90% humidity. So find a warm spot like a storage room, a closet near a heat source, or even a bathroom with a warm shower running. This step is crucial, so don't skip it. Here's a quick storage tip. Once your sweet potatoes are properly cured, it's time to store them. Move them to a cool, dry place like a basement or a root cellar. Ideally, you want them stored at 55 to 60 degrees Fahrenheit. Any colder and the flesh can get hard, and that's not what we're after. If stored correctly, your sweet potatoes can last for months, and you'll have delicious homegrown food to enjoy long after the growing season is past. And that's it. From one sweet potato, you can create dozens of slips, plant them, grow them, and harvest hundreds of pounds of delicious sweet potatoes for your family. Gardening doesn't get any better than this. If you found this guide helpful, hit that like button, subscribe, and share this video with your gardening friends. Let me know in the comments what variety you're planting this year, or if you have any questions. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Before you go, here's a quick bonus tip. If you want to speed up your growth cycle, try using a seedling heat mat to give those slips an extra boost. You'll thank me later. Now go